Chapter 51. You are listening at novelfull.audio. With Baldan and the other envoys dead, the Golden Horde's deal was off the table. They'd come to the great show, but only King Samo made it back in one piece, and King Samo's situation had subtly shifted. Officially, he was still the Golden Horde's national teacher, but he'd secretly become Jiang Hao's puppet. The Golden Horde wouldn't be thrilled to find that out. Bottom line, the Golden Horde's plan blew up in their faces, a total loss. For Jiang Hao, King Samo was just a pawn he'd casually placed. Not a big deal. As things calmed down in the heavenly prison, Jiang Hao decided to release Chen Sheng and Wu Guang. Truth was, those two weren't the settling down types. Jiang Hao thought it over and sent them south of the Yangtze River. Jiangnan had been hit hard by disasters these past few years. Then, the Empress kept jacking up taxes to fund her million-strong army, which really ticked off the locals, but the river towns of Jiangnan weren't like the tough, independent north. The people there were usually more compliant. Even with things so rough, most just quietly took it. Maybe that's why the Empress felt she could get away with taxing them so heavily. Sending those two rebel-rousers, Chen Sheng and Wu Guang, to Jiangnan was like throwing them into the deep end of the pool, or turning mice loose in a grain silo. It didn't take long for them to spark a full-blown uprising, just like the old days. That spark quickly turned into a wildfire, spreading across Jiangnan with alarming speed. Soon, rebel groups were popping up everywhere, signals lighting up the sky. Under Chen Sheng and Wu Guang's leadership, the usually compliant people of Jiangnan were baring their teeth at the great Zhou dynasty for the first time. Even a rabbit will bite when you push it too far, let alone people. The great Zhou dynasty was in chaos. The Eight Kings' rebellion hadn't been fully dealt with, and the Taiping Dao hadn't been crushed. Now, there was this mess in Jiangnan. Ji Luoyao, the empress of the great Zhou dynasty, was in a panic, scrambling to patch things up, robbing Peter to pay Paul, a total wreck. Under that pressure, all the factions in the great Zhou were getting ready to make their move, and the court's grip on the regions was slipping badly. Anyone could see the great Zhou dynasty was on thin ice. It was barely holding it together. One wrong move, and it would be all over. But Jiang Hao, stuck in the heavenly prison, wasn't too worried. He just kept eating and sleeping. With the shadow demon's help collecting energy, his cultivation was zooming ahead. There were changes almost daily, and he was getting closer and closer to perfecting the heavenly prison. One day, the sky was clear, and the breeze was gentle. Then, out of nowhere, everything shifted. 1 second clear, the next, overcast. The energy of the heavenly prison plummeted from the heavens. The energy of the earthly prison surged up from the depths below. The heavenly prison and the earthly prison met in the sky above the great Zhou's capital, kicking up wind and chaos in an instant. People all over the capital were stunned. Even Jiang Hao in the heavenly prison felt something shift. This time, the strange phenomenon wasn't his doing. It might not have been as dramatic as the previous times, but it was still significant. More than that, it wasn't just a weird phenomenon. A creepy, evil power gathered, as if yin and yang were mixing, and every seasoned martial artist felt a strong pressure. Someone's breaking through to the heavenly human realm. That the capital was packed with powerful people, and a veteran quickly figured it out. In a flash, powerful figures appeared on the roofs of pavilions and towers. They stared into the distance, eyes full of anticipation. In this age of cultivation, the heavenly human realm was the ultimate goal for most martial arts masters. Breaking through meant joining the big leagues. Out in the world, you'd be a kingpin. In the court, a title and a general's rank would be yours. No power would turn down someone that strong. Joining meant endless glory and riches. Witnessing the birth of a heavenly human realm powerhouse was a once-in-a-lifetime event for the people in the capital. Boom, 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 that the evil spirits collided, and thunder roared. It was like the power of heaven and earth was maxed out, shaking people to their core. It felt like facing not just a martial arts master, but a supreme god. Then, everyone saw where the strange stuff was coming from. High above the palace, a beautiful figure stood in the air. She wore a dragon robe and a crown, her sleeves billowed, and her eyes blazed. She looked like she didn't belong on earth, flawless and otherworldly, like a fairy come down. Every move showed an extraordinary grace. She was tall and beautiful, her beauty was beyond description, and she had a uniquely invincible, dominant aura. The mix made her peerless and striking. She stood there, and the heavens bowed to her. She stood there, and the people bowed to her. She stood there, and the mountains and rivers paled. It's the Empress. She's breaking through to the heavenly human realm. How old is she? And already breaking through? Wow, someone in their 20s reaching that level is like the ancestors of the Ji family, a true genius. If she breaks through that young, and keeps training, who in the world can stand against her? That everyone was in shock. The one breaking through was the great Zhou Empress, Ji Luoyao. As amazing as she was at running the country, she was even more amazing as a cultivator. Even though the great Zhou was going downhill, her personal power was climbing. It was like she had all the great Zhou's luck stacked on herself. Now, she was taking a huge leap, attacking the heavenly human realm head-on. It was incredibly tough for most people to break through to that realm, but for her, it was like she was blessed. She just had to jump lightly to cross the threshold. Human king body. At the critical moment, unimaginable power exploded from her. Ji Luoyao not only broke through to the heavenly human realm but her human king body also evolved. She was wrapped in terrifying energy, and the pressure she exerted smothered the entire capital. Facing it, countless people couldn't help but bow. It was like they were obligated to bow to a natural king. Even heavenly human realm experts were doing it, except Jiang Hao in the heavenly prison. The gathering of Gangsha and the fusion of yin and yang, these conditions seem to be perfect for me to break through too. Jiang Hao murmured. He was tempted, but worried about the chaos it would cause. Before he could decide, the human emperor's body seemed to get a signal and began to operate on its own. Chapter 52. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Right now, Jiang Hao wasn't quite at the peak of the Tiangang realm, but reaching that peak isn't a must before trying to break through to the Faxiang realm. Case in point, the situation as it stood, essence and energy were swirling together, yin and yang in perfect balance. Thanks to Empress Ji Luoyao's breakthrough, the entire imperial capital was now saturated with an incredible amount of natural energy. For Jiang Hao, this was the perfect environment to make his own leap. Normally, breaking through from the Tiangang realm to the Faxiang realm is a real grind. You usually have to max out your Tiangang realm cultivation, then carefully guide the combined essence and energy with your spiritual awareness. It often takes many tries to get it right, and each failed attempt requires a lengthy recovery period, making the whole process a major pain. But this breakthrough didn't need to be so difficult. If breaking through is normally a 10 on the difficulty scale, right now it's barely a 1, because the air's thick with that perfectly blended essence and energy. Jiang Hao couldn't help but feel a surge of motivation. Sure, he'd always leveled up pretty fast, but who turns down a chance to go even faster? Of course, Jiang Hao also had the human emperor body. It let him directly absorb this potent mix of natural energy, giving him a shortcut past anyone else would be running for cover, not daring to touch such raw, untamed power. But Jiang Hao still hesitated, worried about causing too much of a ruckus. Just as he was weighing his options, the human emperor body took charge, reacting on its own to the abundance of power. The human emperor body seemed to say, "Hold up, I haven't said anything yet, and you're already getting arrogant." In an instant, the human emperor body started working autonomously. At first, Jiang Hao was a little rattled, but as the endless flow of natural energy poured into the human emperor body, and he felt his cultivation growing by leaps and bounds, he immediately tossed his concerns aside. Too late to worry about making a scene now. Might as well enjoy the ride. Even now, Jiang Hao had no idea who was breaking through to the heavenly man realm. Trapped in a heavenly prison, he couldn't see what was happening outside. All he knew was that he could ride this wave, take advantage of the breakthrough atmosphere, and boost his own progress. With a waste not, want not attitude, Jiang Hao shamelessly devoured the energy swirling around him. The 360 clone gods within his body worked in perfect harmony to refine this external energy. They converted it into pure yuan power, filling the acupoints all over his body. In this process, Jiang Hao's cultivation advanced with astonishing speed. A single breath was worth days of hard work. Before he knew it, he'd quietly reached the peak of the Tiangang realm, and he didn't stop there. He charged straight toward the Dharma image realm in one fell swoop. Back in the Great Zhou Palace, Ji Luoyao still floated in the air, unaware that someone was piggybacking on her breakthrough. She was lost in the insights that came with reaching the heavenly man realm. Safe within the palace, and under the protection of many strong guards, she naturally didn't need to worry about her safety. Even without guards, her current strength meant she could handle any challengers. including those seasoned heavenly man realm masters. The human king body gave her a huge advantage. Even fresh from her breakthrough, her power rivaled any old-timer in the heavenly man realm. Feeling her strength surge and her ability to command natural energy, Ji Luoyao reveled in the sense of control. This was how she envisioned herself as the great Empress of Zhou. This is the path I should be on. That it hit her like a ton of bricks. She wasn't like Jiang Hao, and couldn't handle the daily grind of court, manage relationships, and keep everything in order. She had to admit, Jiang Hao had her beat in those areas, but she had advantages that Jiang Hao couldn't match, her once-in-a-century talent for cultivation and her immense personal power. If she was strong enough, she could crush any rebellion with her own power. Anyone who dared to stand against her would be wiped out. When your personal power is off the charts, everything else falls into place. In the immortal realm, I must break through. Ji Luoyao was suddenly seized by a powerful desire. The heavenly man realm alone wouldn't cut it. There were too many heavenly man realm experts out there. Even with the human king body, she could defeat one or two, but a large enough group would be hard to control. Only by reaching the legendary immortal realm could she truly dominate the world, suppressing everyone with her unparalleled power. Only then could she truly become the supreme and unique empress of the great Zhou dynasty. Who else but me? The thought filled her with pride, her eyes shining with ambition. At once, she channeled the power of the human king body, visible to the naked eye. The surrounding natural energy gathered and formed, with faint fluctuations of law. Although she didn't yet grasp the power of law herself, the human king body granted her access to it. This was the built-in advantage of a powerful physique. It didn't guarantee she'd master the power of law, but her chances were far better than other heavenly man realm experts. Just then, an odd wave rippled through the air. The natural energy she had controlled perfectly began to slip away, as if it was about to escape. Ji Luoyao frowned. With the human king body, she couldn't imagine anyone stealing control of natural energy from her, but it was happening. No matter what she did, the surrounding energy kept dissipating, vanishing into thin air. The strange fluctuations grew stronger and stronger. Before Ji Luoyao could react, the void started to tremble. Terrible energy waves rippled, and the natural energy swirled like crazy. In the void, a giant Dharma image, larger than anyone could imagine, slowly began to take shape. Is this someone breaking through to the Dharma image realm? That the sight left Ji Luoyao stunned. Every strong person in the imperial capital was equally floored. Someone was actually breaking through to the Dharma image realm under the shadow of a heavenly man realm expert. No way. Chapter 53. You are listening at novelfull.audio. What a rush of power coming from a heavenly man realm master, especially for someone like Ji Luoyao, fresh off her breakthrough. The pressure was intensified by the lingering force of heaven and earth. It was terrifying. Plus, she was a rare genius with the human king body, so her aura blanketed the entire imperial capital. Under this immense pressure, even other heavenly man realm experts would have to show respect, but now, someone had actually broken through to the Dharma image realm right in the middle of it. Watching the gradually forming void Dharma image, countless experts in the capital were stunned. They stood frozen like statues, eyes wide, pupils filled with disbelief. This scene was blowing their minds. How could someone like this exist? To break through to the Dharma image realm under the pressure of a heavenly man realm expert, was this a challenge? A slap in the face? A straight-up dare? In some ways, it was harder than fighting someone levels above you. Could there be an even more incredible cultivation genius in the imperial capital than the Empress Ji Luoyao herself? Everyone's gaze darted to the woman in question, the Empress Ji Luoyao, wanting to know what she was thinking. Well, she was furious. Everything had been going perfectly today. She'd hit the heavenly man realm at just over 20, becoming the youngest expert ever. It was a massive victory. The news would bolster morale at court, and any restless factions would think twice. After all, a heavenly man realm master in her 20s. Who knew how far she could go? If they really pushed her, she could come after them, and who could stop her? But now, someone was stealing her thunder, and the impact of her achievement would be diminished. Messing with someone's money is bad, but messing with something this important, something that affects the whole country, was unforgivable. Ji Luoyao's beautiful face turned to ice, her dark eyes flashed with a hint of murder. and she roared, "Who is it?" The shout was like a thunderclap, it echoed for miles, but no one answered, just the void Dharma image, still taking shape. "Fine, you don't want to show yourself? Then I'll drag you out." Ji Luoyao gritted her teeth, her anger intensifying. She channeled the power of heaven and earth, and in an instant, a colossal Dharma image rose up behind her. Dharma image realm experts could manifest a Dharma image, and heavenly man realm experts could do it even better. Heavenly man realm masters had an even finer control over the power of heaven and earth, making their Dharma images that much more powerful. Boom, boom. Ji Luoyao commanded the Dharma image behind her to stride forward, raise its fist, and slam it toward the void Dharma image. If the void Dharma image shattered, the person breaking through in secret would suffer, failing their breakthrough for sure. Worse, their mind could be damaged, destroying any hope for future progress. And could Ji Luoyao's heavenly man realm Dharma image shatter the Dharma image of someone only just breaking through to the Dharma image realm? To everyone else, it wasn't even a question. Both parties had just broken through, but one was in the heavenly man realm, and the other in the Dharma image realm. The gap was insurmountable. Everyone thought it was a foregone conclusion. Daring to break through to the Dharma image realm at this time was admirable, sure, but they were asking for it. But surprisingly, the mysterious Dharma image in the void didn't shatter. Instead, it stabilized completely under the assault, then it suddenly expanded, becoming 100 feet tall in the blink of an eye, like a towering giant. This. Countless people gasped. The Dharma image of a Dharma image realm expert was, at most, 10 feet tall. Even Ji Luoyao, a heavenly man realm powerhouse with the human king body and a mastery of techniques, could only create a Dharma image that was about 30 feet tall, but the Dharma image in front of them, newly formed, had suddenly grown to 100 feet. It was unheard of, unimaginable. Bigger isn't always better, but, well, bigger is better. If you could be bigger, why wouldn't you? But how could this guy's Dharma image be so massive? Did he take something, use some kind of secret technique? So big, it must be mostly air. Just as everyone was puzzling over it, a loud bang shook the void, and the terrifying power of heaven and earth surged. The two Dharma images had clashed head-on, and Ji Luoyao's heavenly man realm Dharma image was actually being pushed back. Everyone watched in shock, but it also made a kind of sense. After all, one was 100 feet tall, and the other only 30, a 3 times difference was going to be noticeable. But the fact was, this 100-foot Dharma image belonged to a Dharma image realm expert, and one who had just broken through right under their noses, and Ji Luoyao, a genius of the heavenly man realm, couldn't beat him. The result was jaw-dropping. It was completely backwards. A heavenly man realm expert losing to a Dharma image realm expert. How could that be? Even if it was just a contest of Dharma images, it was still unacceptable. The normally arrogant Empress Ji Luoyao was stunned. Before she could react, the massive Dharma image looked at her and then vanished in an instant. In the blink of an eye, it dissolved into pure energy, disappearing without a trace. It was like a casual flick of the wrist, leaving nothing behind. Watching the opponent's Dharma image vanish into thin air, Ji Luoyao was shaking with rage. To run away after a fight. So cheap. Now she had no chance for revenge. She knew the other party had completed their breakthrough and retreated. She was left standing there, humiliated, with no one to vent her anger on. Ji Luoyao was about to explode. The unprecedented frustration filled her with fury. The joy of her breakthrough had been completely ruined. Spread my order. Search the entire city immediately and find this person. Ji Luoyao snapped. A wave of experts took the order and scattered. The entire imperial capital was on the hunt, all because the Empress had suffered a crushing defeat. Everyone was desperate to know who could make the Empress lose so badly, amazed that someone who had just broken through the Dharma image realm could have pulled this off. Chapter 54. You are listening at novelfull.audio. While the whole world was freaking out about this, Jiang Hao was just waking up in his cell, feeling the change in his cultivation. A happy little smile crept onto his face. Normally, he figured it would take him maybe 2 weeks to hit perfection in the Tiangang realm, then, another month or 2 to merge the Gangsha Qi and get to the Faxiang realm, so, all told, at least 2 months. But now, riding this wave, catching someone else's buzz, he'd shaved off 2 whole months. No wonder he was stoked. Faxiang realm was a whole different ballgame compared to Tiangang. For one, his spiritual awareness could now tap into the outside power of heaven and earth and condense a Faxiang, a real magical skill, enough to take down generals and bust through formations. Plus, his internal energy got a serious upgrade. Once he integrated the Gangsha power, one unit of energy would pack the punch of several. Basically, someone in the Tiangang realm was at least 10 times weaker than someone in Faxiang. Now that he'd leveled up to Faxiang, all he had to do was build up his energy. Once his internal energy and consciousness were up to snuff, he could try for the Tianren realm, but no rush, since he'd just broken through. And with Jiang Hao hitting Faxiang, Yin Yao could finally catch a break. She wouldn't have to haul her butt up to the 9 heavens every day to gather gangqi for him in the blazing sun. Even though she said she didn't mind the grind, Jiang Hao didn't want to overwork his pet, even if his pet was a little hardcore. No way, she's the one who broke through to the Tianren realm. Jiang Hao had finally figured out who was behind the breakthrough. He never would have guessed it was Ji Luoyao, and he really hadn't expected them to throw down in the sky with their Dharma images, but she, with the human emperor body advantage, actually landed a couple of hits. The kicker. He rode her coattails to the Faxiang realm. It was almost too good to be true. He hadn't felt this good since he got thrown in the slammer. She might be a mess when it comes to running the country, but she's got a serious gift for cultivation. Her progress is insane. Now she's broken through to the heavenly man realm. Jiang Hao couldn't help but sigh. If he remembered right, Ji Luoyao was only 23 or 24, still in her prime. Most folks her age would still be grinding through level 6 of physical training. Maybe a few lucky geniuses with powerful backers would have just barely made it past the ordinary realm and be hanging around the Dragon Gate realm. But Ji Luoyao, at the same age, had already hit the peak of the 5 ordinary realms, the heavenly man realm. She was leaving even the old guard in the dust. Talk about annoying. She definitely deserved the title of natural prodigy. Then again, Jiang Hao reminded himself, he'd hit the Dharma image realm after just 4 months in prison. Maybe Ji Luoyao wasn't that fast. I'm not sure about the situation in the immortal realm yet, so let's set a small goal. I'm going to surpass Ji Luoyao in everything within 3 months. Jiang Hao pumped himself up. He was super confident he could nail this one, as long as the system gave him a little nudge. On the Empress's orders, the whole team, Jinyui, Shenbusi, and Gongfengtang, scoured the capital for the mysterious Dharma image realm master. Meanwhile, the heavenly prison was dead quiet. Nobody would ever suspect that this Dharma image realm prodigy was chilling in a prison cell, and no one would ever connect Jiang Hao, the infamous cultivation dud, to this mysterious master. So they busted their butts all day, only managing to dig up a few runaway imperial prisoners. No sign of the person the Empress wanted. She was, understandably, furious. She'd been all set to milk this perfect breakthrough for all it was worth and boost her reputation. Since taking over, she felt like she hadn't messed up. But luck was not on her side, and accidents kept happening, leading to war in Great Zhou. And her reputation kept sliding. Now, even a personal power boost would have been a huge win, but some rando had to come along and mess up her flawless victory. One rotten apple spoils the whole bunch. And with countless witnesses, there was no way to keep it quiet. When the news hit about the Empress breaking through to the heavenly man realm, the mysterious Dharma realm powerhouse was sure to be part of the story, turning her, the protagonist, into a sidekick. Her PR efforts would be seriously hobbled. The thought made Ji Luoyao's blood boil and her liver hurt. All the joy of the breakthrough was gone. Find him. Find everyone. Tear this city apart if you have to. Just find this guy. Don't even think about coming back until you do. Ji Luoyao spat, teeth gritted. How hard could it be to find one guy? Jinyui Commander Cao Xiaobing and the others were too scared to breathe, let alone talk back. They just silently went back to the search. While everyone was tearing the city apart, someone showed up at the gates of the heavenly prison, tall and serious, wearing a star-patterned robe with long black hair slung over his shoulders, a bit unkempt, but his dark eyes shone like stars. His whole body seemed to be shrouded in mist, making it hard to get a clear read on him. This was the mysterious director of the Imperial Observatory. His background was a mystery, and he rarely showed his face. Sticking mostly to the observatory, only making appearances for special ceremonies. Now, he held a compass, pulsing with a strange power. The needle spun wildly. Finally, when he stopped in front of the prison gates, the compass needle steadied. The director of the Imperial Observatory stopped too. Then, he looked up at the prison gates ahead. "Finally found you." That a knowing smile touched the corners of his lips. Chapter 55. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Warden Tao, what brings you here today? Tao Gongwang, the warden of the heavenly prison, rushed to greet the supervisor of the Imperial Observatory, who'd shown up unannounced. He couldn't figure it out. Why would this usually aloof and arrogant official visit his prison instead of staying put in the observatory? The heavenly prison is a dangerous place, full of vicious criminals. It's no place for someone of your stature. Tao Gongwang's eyes narrowed with suspicion. Ever since Jiang Wenhua threatened and strong-armed him last time, he'd learned his lesson. Now, he met people at the prison gates, not inside his office. He figured nobody would dare pull anything in a public place like this, and if they did, all he had to do was shout, and his jailers would come running. I just felt like visiting the heavenly prison on a whim. Perhaps you could show me around, warden? The supervisor asked. Tao Gongwang hesitated, then shook his head. If it was some high-ranking official he couldn't afford to offend, he might have bent the rules, but sorry, supervisor. Sure, you're highborn, but that's it. I'm not worried about stepping on your toes. Besides, the supervisor had always been a bit of a mystery. He was probably hiding something, and Tao Gongwang wasn't about to get mixed up in it. I'm really sorry, but the heavenly prison is, well, a prison. No outsiders are allowed inside without a letter from the Ministry of Justice or a direct order from the Emperor. Those are His Majesty's orders from just a few days ago. Tao Gongwang declared, all righteousness and selflessness. Despite the direct refusal, the supervisor didn't react, not even a hint of anger. He started to turn away, then stopped. Warden, look into my eyes. What? Tao Gongwang looked up without thinking. His eyes met the supervisor's. Suddenly, a strange light flared in the supervisor's pupils. Tao Gongwang was caught completely off guard. It hit him like a wave, clouding his mind, wiping away his usual caution. Warden, do you think I can go in? Yes. Then please, lead the way. Yes. They spoke in unison, like they were old friends. Anyone watching would have thought they were the best of pals, and so, under the guidance of Warden Tao Gongwang, the supervisor of the Imperial Observatory gained entry to the prison. Once inside, he continued to clutch his compass, constantly checking the needle, wandering through the prison. This strange behavior didn't escape the notice of the shadow demon lurking in the darkness. Master, wake up. Wake up, quick. Stop napping. There's a weirdo outside. The shadow demon hurried to report to Jiang Hao. Jiang Hao woke up with a yawn, annoyed. How many times do I have to tell you? I'm not sleeping, I'm training. Right, master, you're the hardest working. There's a strange guy out there, take a peek. The shadow demon nodded quickly, then used his magic to conjure a dark energy light curtain, displaying the outside scene. You little punk, you really don't listen to your master. Jiang Hao grumbled. Since being promoted to Demon King, the shadow demon had become much smarter, acting more and more like a normal person. The only problem was he'd picked up bad habits from the prisoners and jailers, and his personality was going downhill, but that wasn't the immediate issue. Jiang Hao focused on the light curtain. Jiang Hao's eyes narrowed. Something was definitely off with Tao Gongwang. That guy, is that the supervisor of the Imperial Observatory? What's he doing here? Is Tao Gongwang's condition connected to him? The Imperial Observatory's main job was to observe the stars and calculate the seasons and calendars, serving the Emperor. Even during Jiang Hao's reign, he'd only dealt with that department a few times. He wasn't very familiar with the supervisor, only knowing that he was a bit of a recluse, rarely interacting with other officials. Then again, he was a professional stargazer, so it was normal for him to have his quirks. Nobody really cared. But Jiang Hao couldn't understand why he'd come to the prison. The supervisor was making his way deeper into the prison, level by level, as if he were looking for someone or something. Jiang Hao had a strong feeling that this guy was specifically after him. With that thought, he glanced up at the shadow demon. No words were needed. A single look and the shadow demon understood perfectly, he melted into the darkness and disappeared, sure enough. About an incense stick of time later, the supervisor, led by Warden Tao Gongwang, arrived at the 18th level of the prison. This is the lowest level of the prison. Yes. If I remember correctly, Duke Weiguo, Jiang Hao, is imprisoned here. Yes. The supervisor was silent for a moment, then said, open the cell door. Yes. Tao Gongwang, like a puppet, obeyed without question. He quickly pulled out the special key from his waist and meticulously unlocked the chains and door. With a series of clangs, the cell door swung open, and the supervisor of the Imperial Observatory stepped inside alone. Once inside, he looked around, carefully examining the surroundings. After confirming he was alone, he focused his gaze on Jiang Hao, then, he looked down at the compass in his hand. The needle had stopped moving completely, his pupils shrank, and he slowly raised his head, fixing his eyes on Jiang Hao. Duke Weiguo, you're hiding yourself well. The supervisor took a deep breath, as if trying to control the emotions surging inside him, then spoke, each word deliberate. Jiang Hao looked up at him, his eyes seemingly filled with confusion, and asked, what do you mean by that, Lord Supervisor? The supervisor laughed and shook his head, looking at Jiang Hao with sarcasm. Now that I've found you, are you still going to play dumb? I still don't understand what you're talking about. Jiang Hao looked bewildered. His expression, his movements, his reactions, everything was perfect, not a single flaw. However, the supervisor didn't buy it. He seemed to have already made up his mind. If I tell Her Majesty the Empress that Duke Wei is the possessor of the human emperor body, how do you think she'll react? Hearing that, Jiang Hao's head snapped up, and his eyes turned sharp. Chapter 56. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The human emperor body. You think I'm the owner of that? Jiang Hao glared at the Imperial Observatory director, his face like stone. You're kidding me, right? Everyone knows my talent for cultivation is less than impressive. He scoffed. Besides, the human emperor body is exclusive to the Ji family ancestors. Only their bloodline can awaken it. How could an outsider like me have it? Even if you told the Empress that load of hui, you think she'd buy it? The director's eyes flickered with doubt. Well, that makes sense, he thought. In theory, Jiang Hao was right. Worldwide, only the Ji family bloodline could unlock that power. How could Jiang Hao, a well-known underachiever, pull it off? But he glanced at the compass in his hand, and another possibility struck him. Wait a minute. Duke Weiguo, are you secretly a member of the Ji clan? Do you have their blood in you? He stared at Jiang Hao, shocked. Jiang Hao just blinked, utterly dumbfounded by the man's wild guess. How'd he become a Ji? Whose bright idea was that family tree? The director seemed to think he'd cracked the case. Certainty gleaming in his eyes, he laughed. That's the only explanation. You have to be a Ji to awaken the human emperor body. 100%. No need to hide it, I've figured it all out. Jiang Hao just gaped, realizing that nothing he said would change this guy's mind. The director's reasoning was off the wall, but his conclusion was spot on. Jiang Hao did possess the human emperor body. It was a total mess. Jiang Hao was speechless and trying to figure out how the director had found out in the first place. Taking a deep breath, he forced down his irritation. Director, he said evenly, forget the Ji clan thing for a minute. Why are you so sure I have the human emperor body? The director smirked. Admit it, Duke. You can't fool me. When that first weird thing happened, I had a hunch it was connected to the human emperor body. The second one sealed the deal. I searched the whole city for Ji clan members, but nobody fit. 2 months wasted, but it paid off. I found you. He held up the compass. This is a special gizmo, refined with the Empress's own blood. Her blood can suppress anyone, except the human emperor body. That's why I'm sure I've got the right guy. So, what do you have to say for yourself, Duke Weiguo? Jiang Hao was cornered. If the director was an idiot, he could make up some story. But this guy was sharp, he wouldn't have found him otherwise. Lying was out of the question, that left only one option: if you can't beat the problem, beat the guy who made the problem. A cold glint flashed in Jiang Hao's eyes. He started to mobilize the Yuanli in his body's 360 acupoints. The shadow demon, lurking nearby, got the signal and began to move as well. Jiang Hao didn't want to leave his comfortable spot at Tianlao, but his secret was out. To keep the Empress from sending an army to wipe him out, he had to act fast, but the director spoke, stopping him in his tracks. Relax, Duke Weiguo. You're freaking out, I get it. But I'm the only one who knows your secret. The Empress and everyone else have no clue about your human emperor body, or that those weird events were caused by you. Huh? Jiang Hao's head snapped up, surprised. Then, realizing what the director was implying, he narrowed his eyes. So, you want something. What is it? Source blood. 1 drop. The director's eyes blazed as he raised a finger. He tried to sound casual, but his excitement was obvious. That 1 drop of blood was a big deal to him. Source blood? Never heard of it. And I don't have any. Jiang Hao frowned, honestly confused. He wasn't pretending, this was all new to him. Oh, you have it. And only you have it. The director smiled. The human emperor body is the ultimate physique. Every owner is born with 3 drops of source blood. Some people call it the essence of life. It has all sorts of amazing uses, from medicine to crafting tools to drawing talismans. But its best use is improving physiques. Even a normal person who takes a drop would be reborn. He didn't elaborate, but his eyes burned as he stared at Jiang Hao. My request is simple, give me a drop, and I'll keep your secret. Seems fair, right? It sounded easy, but Jiang Hao wasn't buying it. The director went through a lot to find him, it wasn't just for a drop of blood. If this source blood is so precious, and there are only 3 drops, taking 1 out will screw me up, right? You're a smart guy, Duke, I won't lie. Yeah, there will be a downside. You'll be weaker for a while. The director sounded sincere. But it's not a big deal. Just eat right, take some high-quality medicine and spiritual stuff, and you can replenish it. If you trust me, I can even help you with that. Jiang Hao stared him down, then shook his head. Help me replenish it, or just keep milking me for source blood, the director faltered. He met Jiang Hao's gaze, which seemed to see right through him. He opened his mouth, as if to explain, but gave up. Damn, that's the problem with smart people, they figure things out before you even say them. Fine, yeah, I want a steady supply. The human emperor body is so rare. If I got enough source blood, I could transform myself into a strong physique like yours. The director's eyes were wild. He wasn't looking at a person anymore, but at some priceless treasure. He dropped the nice act, his tone turning cold. The moment I walked in here, your fate was sealed, Duke Weiguo. You have 2 choices, hand over the source blood, or I'll take it myself, by force. Chapter 57. You are listening at novelfull.audio. What if I don't pick one? Jiang Hao stared at the head of the Imperial Observatory, not seeing a person, but a corpse. The director felt like he was facing a predator. Unnerved by Jiang Hao's emotionless gaze, he fought back the fear rising in his gut, anger bubbling up alongside it. So, unlocking the human emperor physique has given you a swelled head, Duke Weiguo. The director took a steadying breath, his eyes now mocking Jiang Hao. He clearly thought Jiang Hao was missing the point. Who's the hunter here? Who's the prey? Jiang Hao's face remained blank. Want to test that theory, supervisor? I have no idea what you're talking about, the supervisor scoffed, then declared, with the certainty of the truly out of touch. Martial arts masters don't just happen, you know. We train our asses off, summer and winter, fighting battle after battle to get where we are. You, Duke Weiguo, you just got lucky. Think unlocking some special bloodline makes you a master. You're delusional. And that crazy energy surge last night? That was you, wasn't it? Who else but a human emperor could summon something like that? The Empress is tearing the city apart looking for the source. Can you imagine her face when she realizes it was you? Jiang Hao just smiled, his eyes growing colder. Supervisor, he said softly, ever hear the saying, the more you know, the sooner you go? The sooner I go? You think breaking through to the Dharma image realm means you can take me? The supervisor gave a harsh laugh. Still, gotta admit, that human emperor thing is something else. Known screw up your whole life, then boom, new bloodline, and suddenly you're in the Dharma image realm. Talk about unfair. Jealousy flashed across the supervisor's face. He'd busted his ass, year after year, to get where he was. All dedication, all the time. Jiang Hao, on the other hand, was lounging in prison, doing nothing, and suddenly he's right up there with him. Hard not to be bitter. But so what if you're in the Dharma image realm? You gonna summon your Dharma image here, in the heavenly prison? You want everyone to know who you are. Because the Empress will definitely be coming for you. You can't summon it. He stepped closer, a smug grin spreading across his face. The Dharma image was a martial artist's best tool, but Jiang Hao couldn't use it here, too many witnesses. And a Dharma image was hard to miss, especially one as massive and unique as a human emperor's, so, in his eyes, Jiang Hao was just a paper tiger. Dharma image realm or not, without his ultimate weapon, he was harmless. Confidence radiating off him, the supervisor kept advancing. His own power grew with each step. He, too, was in the Dharma image realm, but he had hit the peak, so close to the heavenly man realm he could taste it. Of course, not everyone was Ji Luoyao, able to skip right over that line into godhood. He was just a regular guy, stuck with his limits. He was close to the heavenly man realm, but that last leap felt impossible. Then he found out about Jiang Hao and his human emperor physique. Jiang Hao wasn't just a challenge, he was the key to getting him into the heavenly man realm, and beyond. Don't worry, once I've got you, I won't kill you. I'll treat you like gold. Once I've drained enough of your essence, you can watch me ascend to the top with your own eyes. The supervisor's face twisted into a snarl. All restraint was gone. He unleashed his full power and lunged at Jiang Hao like a wild animal. Jiang Hao was ready. He waited until the last possible second to strike. All 360 of his acupoints were active, the avatars within shone like stars, pulling unimaginable energy into his arms. His punch carried the force of a hurricane. It was a runaway freight train of power. Mirror the attack, overwhelm the opponent, and then One Punch Man. This was the only fighting style that made sense for Jiang Hao. 3 simple steps. It covered his lack of experience while maximizing his natural advantages. The supervisor assumed Jiang Hao was just a Dharma image trick pony, completely ignoring the power of a human emperor, and Jiang Hao had more than just the human emperor blood running through his veins. Sleeping Dragon technique gave him a physique to match, 360 acupoints. The supervisor couldn't even imagine it, and on top of all that, Jiang Hao got daily freebies from the system, chugging down elixirs like water. To most, foundation pills were priceless. To Jiang Hao, they were candy. And they made his foundation rock solid. All of it combined made him what he was. The supervisor thought he was just a lucky screw-up, a colossal mistake, and he was about to pay for it. The punch landed square. Jiang Hao didn't budge, but the supervisor went flying. He stumbled back 10 steps before managing to steady himself. His arms were numb, blood trickled from the corner of his mouth, his chest heaved, and his face had turned as white as a sheet. His mind, however, was even paler. What the hell? You just hit the Dharma image realm. How are you packing that kind of energy, that kind of power? You're not the Duke of Weigua. Who are you? The supervisor stared up at Jiang Hao, his eyes wide with shock and dawning terror. Everything had gone wrong. He thought he was in control, but the truth was, he was the one about to be controlled. That's all you got? Seriously? What, did someone spike your protein shake? Contempt dripped from Jiang Hao's voice, and with that, he vanished. He didn't need any fancy martial arts, his raw speed and reflexes were enough. He reappeared in front of the supervisor in a blink. The supervisor barely managed to dodge to the side, but Jiang Hao shifted mid-strike, turning his fist into a sideways kick. A sickening crack echoed as his leg smashed into the supervisor's waist. The supervisor doubled over, a human shrimp. And Jiang Hao wasn't done. Another kick followed. The supervisor had nowhere to go. The full force of the blow sent him rocketing through the air like a ragdoll. He slammed into the cell wall, then crumpled to the ground in a heap, spitting up blood. Jiang Hao's voice drifted after him. Pathetic. Chapter 58. You are listening at novelfull.audio. What did you just say? Those words hit the director of the Imperial Observatory like a ton of bricks, and his eyes went bloodshot instantly. Gritting his teeth, he struggled to his feet. Could you believe it? A well-known cultivation failure, a lucky stiff who accidentally tripped over the human emperor body, was calling him weak. It was the ultimate insult. Even though Jiang Hao wasn't the pushover he used to be, that old reputation still stuck. That's exactly why the director never took Jiang Hao seriously in the first place. Even knowing about the human emperor body, he still looked down on him, and now, to have Jiang Hao say he was vulnerable. Unforgivable. Jiang Hao's words cut him to the quick, shredding his pride and sending him into a rage. The anger burned in his chest, threatening to consume him completely. Jiang Hao, you asked for this. You brought this on yourself. Today, I'm personally going to rip your head off and show you who the real waste is. That the director was a mess, hair wild, clothes torn, ranting like a lunatic. As he screamed, a terrifying energy, hidden deep within him, suddenly exploded. This energy was nothing like the only cultivated by warriors. It was pure evil. As it surged through his body, the director, who was already on his last legs, was instantly revitalized, surpassing his previous peak in no time. He was no longer the aloof, mysterious official he pretended to be. Now, he was radiating pure evil. Even his appearance was changing. Black fur sprouted on his skin, his teeth lengthened into fangs, and sharp claws grew from his fingers. Worst of all were his eyes, flashing with a blood-red light, filled with a cruel, predatory hunger like a rabid dog. There was no mistaking what was happening. You're a demon. That even Jiang Hao couldn't help but frown. No, if you were a full demon, you'd have been discovered a long time ago. And this isn't a complete transformation. So, you're a half-demon. Jiang Hao's mind raced. While the Great Zhou controlled the rich Central Plains, they weren't the only power in the world. There were other forces that could give them a run for their money, like the Golden Horde, who dominated the endless northern grasslands, and far to the east, in the eastern wilderness, was the Demon God Empire, a nation ruled entirely by demons, where humans were nothing but slaves. Their civilization might not be as sophisticated as Great Zhou's, but their power was considerable. Over the years, the two had maintained a tense distance, engaging in secret skirmishes. The Golden Horde were still human, more or less, but the demons were something else entirely. That's why Great Zhou was so vigilant. Any demons found within their borders were shown no mercy, especially those in positions of power. Jiang Hao never imagined that the director of the Imperial Observatory was a half-demon, hiding in plain sight. It all clicked into place now. He understood why the director was so withdrawn, so secretive, always holed up in the observatory. He was trying to keep his identity hidden. I didn't want to reveal myself, but you forced my hand. Now that you know the truth, I can't let you live. The human emperor body is too valuable, a pity. But if I absorb all 3 drops of blood in your body, it should be enough to break through to the heavenly realm. That the director's face twisted with rage, his eyes locked on Jiang Hao, filled with a savage, bloodthirsty light that could chill you to the bone. The surge of demon power, combined with his own cultivation, hadn't quite pushed him into the heavenly realm, but he was practically a half-step away. At that level, even a tiny advantage made all the difference. A half-step heavenly man could crush ordinary Dharma realm masters. Jiang Hao had never faced a demon before. He couldn't afford to be cocky. He raised his hand, and the Qingjiao sword, a top-grade treasure weapon, materialized in his grip. The director blinked in surprise but said nothing. Once Jiang Hao was dead, all that stuff would be his anyway. Boom! Without another word, the battle was on. With the shadow demon lurking in the background, Jiang Hao was calm and collected. In fact, he saw this as a chance to sharpen his skills. Now that his true nature was out, the director didn't hold back. His cultivation had spiked, and his demon blood gave him a physical edge over human warriors. they traded blows, a flurry of attacks and parries. Aside from the unspoken agreement not to summon their Dharma images, they threw everything they had at each other. Jiang Hao had a solid foundation, potent yuanli, and a tough body. He fought like a wild man, with no regard for his own safety. The director countered with his superior cultivation, richer combat experience, and the quickness of a wolf demon. He avoided head-on clashes, holding his own for now. In the blink of an eye, they exchanged hundreds of blows. Even without their Dharma images, the intense battle started to drain the director. His face grew paler with each passing moment. Meanwhile, Jiang Hao, fresh from his breakthrough to the Dharma image realm, seemed unfazed. He was getting into the groove, enjoying the fight, growing bolder with every move. He could go on like this for days. Damn it! Is this guy made of iron? Doesn't he ever get tired? The director cursed inwardly. Finally, reality hit him. Jiang Hao was stronger than he thought. He knew he probably couldn't win. If he kept fighting, he might even get killed. Though he hated to admit it, he had to find a way out. I can't stay in the capital anymore, but before I go, I'll expose you. Jiang Hao, just you wait. You'll never have peace. If I can't have the human emperor body, you won't have a good life either. But with that, the director bolted, fleeing the prison at breakneck speed. Jiang Hao stood his ground, watching him coldly, as if he were already dead. The director was confused, but just then, a swirling black fog appeared in his path. Before he could react, it engulfed him, and a crushing pressure descended. He felt like he'd been plunged into an icy tomb. Heavenly realm, the thought flashed through his mind. Then, darkness swallowed him whole. A moment later, the shadow demon materialized, beaming at Jiang Hao. Master, was I good? Give me praise. Chapter 59. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Facing the shadow demon's attempts to flatter him, Jiang Hao just shook his head. He reached out to pet it, but his hand went right through. Shadow demons make great pets, except for one thing: you can't actually pet them. If he ever got the chance, he'd get a cat to fill that void. Good job. Appreciate your hard work. Verbal praise was all Jiang Hao could offer. The shadow demon didn't ask for much. It was instantly satisfied and looked delighted. To be honest, it hadn't been hard at all. After all, the Imperial Observatory director was already running on fumes thanks to Jiang Hao, and the shadow demon had been secretly preparing for this for a long time. With its careful planning and their difference in power, it was a piece of cake. It wanted to say that collecting gangqi from the 9 heavens was way harder. What happened? No, Lord Wei. Lord Wei, watch out. Lord Wei, are you alright? With the death of the director of the Imperial Observatory, Tao Gongwang, the prison warden, snapped awake. Remembering what he'd done, he panicked and rushed into the cell, shouting. Mostly, he was worried that Jiang Hao was actually dead. Then who would give him the antidote? He'd be done for, too. Even if it was just for his own skin, he had to do everything he could to keep Jiang Hao safe. But this time, he practically invited a murderer to Jiang Hao's cell. He was asking for it. I'm fine, I'm fine. Don't worry about it. Jiang Hao rolled his eyes at Tao Gongwang's frantic expression. If he'd been relying on him, he'd be dead ages ago. After Tao Gongwang explained, Jiang Hao finally understood what had happened. He was surprised, too. He hadn't realized that the director of the Imperial Observatory knew such a weird secret technique. Just by looking at him, Tao Gongwang, a warden in the Dragon Gate realm, was completely mind-controlled. That was insane. Demons are seriously strange, Jiang Hao thought to himself, paying even closer attention to the demon race. Like humans, some demons were strong and others were weak. Some of the naturally weak ones were even worse off than humans, but there was no denying that some of the powerful, talented demons were a real problem. Even a half-demon like the director of the Imperial Observatory, who was in the Dharma image realm, had this mind control trick down. The demon kings were probably even harder to deal with. Lord Wei, now that the director of the Imperial Observatory is dead, his loyal followers might still know about your identity, right? Tao Gongwang suddenly looked worried and quickly warned him. Jiang Hao paused, then frowned. Tao Gongwang had a point. Not that they necessarily knew his secret, that was unlikely. After all, It was only after the director of the Imperial Observatory came to the heavenly prison and used his compass that he figured out Jiang Hao had the body of the human emperor. But the director had been researching this stuff in secret for ages. There was no guarantee he hadn't left behind some clues. If someone else followed his method and made a similar compass, he'd have visitors all the time. Jiang Hao's eyes turned cold. He immediately looked at Tao Gongwang and Ying Yao and ordered, "You're on this." "Yes, Master/Lord Wei," that they both responded. Tao Gongwang wanted to redeem himself and show off what he could do. Ying Yao just wanted to get out of the prison. It didn't care what they did. Before dark, Ying Yao possessed the director's corpse, threw on some clothes to cover it up, and walked out of the prison. Tao Gongwang met him halfway. He'd lived in the capital for years and knew exactly where the Imperial Observatory was. The Imperial Observatory wasn't important, just a government office. It was out of the way and didn't have many people. About half an hour later, they reached the Imperial Observatory, hid around the corner, and watched. But nobody went in or out. It was deserted, just like you'd expect from a clean government office. So what now? That the shadow demon, still in control of the director's corpse, looked at the Imperial Observatory and asked Tao Gongwang. It was only there to do the dirty work. Tao Gongwang had to do the thinking. Tao Gongwang thought for a minute and said, "From what I know, there are less than 100 people at the Imperial Observatory, and they don't do much. They mostly just meditate in their offices. Not many of them would be the director's closest followers. But I don't know who those followers are. So, just to be safe, we shouldn't let any of them live. Once it's done, we set the place on fire and destroy the bodies." Humans were definitely no less ruthless than demons. Even the shadow demon, who was usually pretty vicious, gave Tao Gongwang a second look. "Where did you learn these tricks?" "From the prisoners at the heavenly prison." But Tao Gongwang wasn't Jiang Hao, and the shadow demon wasn't that close to him. Now that it had the answer, it got to work. For ordinary people, a monster in the realm of the Demon King was unstoppable. The shadow demon, still in control of the director's corpse, walked into the Imperial Observatory, then it tossed the corpse aside and melted into the darkness. The shadows in the office began to writhe, turning into strange, dark tentacles. Before they could react, the Imperial Observatory disciples were grabbed by the tentacles and killed. Only a few of the disciples who had reached the extraordinary realm could put up any resistance, trying to fight back or running for their lives, but there weren't many of them, and the shadow demon quickly took care of them. In no time, there was nobody left alive at the Imperial Observatory. Almost 100 people were dead. The shadow demon was surprised to find that a lot of these people were half demons. The others had been secretly transformed by the demon clan's secret method. They weren't pure humans anymore. Over the years, the director had been slowly corrupting the entire Imperial Observatory. It had become a secret base for the demons lurking in the capital. They weren't of the same clan, so the shadow demon showed no mercy. Seeing that the shadow demon was done, Tao Gongwang set the place on fire. The Imperial Observatory was soon engulfed in flames, and Tao Gongwang and Ying Yao took off. The news that everyone at the Imperial Observatory was dead couldn't be kept quiet. The Empress was soon alerted. Chapter 60. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Even though the Imperial Observatory was just a government bureau, it was a formal department directly under the Imperial Court, giving it significant prestige. The director reported directly to the emperor and the royal family. So, the observatory's brutal extermination, leaving almost 100 dead, naturally caused a major uproar. To have such a shocking event occur in the imperial capital, practically under the noses of the court, was almost unbelievable. The army immediately locked down the observatory, surrounding it completely. Jinui, Shenbusi, the Ministry of Justice, the Dali Temple, the Metropolitan Procuratorate, and other criminal investigation departments dispatched their best people to form a special task force. After leaving the court, Empress Ji Luoyao herself came to the Imperial Observatory. "This is the director of the Imperial Observatory?" Ji Luoyao asked, staring at a corpse on the ground, her face blank and her voice cold. Everyone went silent, not daring to answer. It wasn't the director's tragic death, nor the bizarre cause of it, but the way he looked now, so different from before. The black hair, the savage fangs, the sharp claws, the weird, fierce eyes, exposed for all to see. these features were impossible to ignore. They revealed the director's true identity. He wasn't entirely human, but a half-demon, tainted with demon blood. A half-demon had successfully infiltrated the Great Zhou court and risen to become the director of the Imperial Observatory. The idea was ludicrous, far more serious than the massacre itself. Who recommended him for the job? Ji Luoyao asked through gritted teeth. The Great Zhou dynasty had always been vigilant against demons, capturing or executing them on sight. Now, a half-demon had not only infiltrated the court but had become a high-ranking official, frequently meeting with the emperor. In fact, Ji Luoyao herself had met with him repeatedly, completely unaware of his true nature. She thought about the last time, when she had ordered a citywide search for the so-called human emperor, based on his advice. Now, she couldn't help but wonder if this human emperor even existed. If it was all a lie, a fabrication by the director, then her insistence on reducing the vassal states against the council of her ministers would make her a laughingstock. Ji Luoyao felt a wave of panic. Had she been played for a fool by a half-demon? Shame and anger burned inside her, impossible to contain. She wanted to grind the corpse to dust. Even that wouldn't be enough to satisfy her rage. After all, the guy was already dead. To die like this is too easy for him. That she glared at everyone present, determined to find out who had recommended him. They would pay. Silence stretched on. Finally, Qiao Xiaobing, commander of the Jinyui, raised his head and said, "It appears, the late emperor personally appointed him." Ji Luoyao's eyes widened, and she almost gasped for air, her face flushing. As the empress, she could punish anyone, but she couldn't touch the late emperor, her own deceased father. The true culprit was gone. The recommender was her dead father. What could she do? She would have to swallow her anger, no matter how bitter. What about the other bodies? Ji Luoyao looked at the remaining corpses. As their vitality faded, the demonic traits became more obvious, fueling her rage. Who can tell me when the Imperial Observatory became a haven for demons? How could no one have noticed it all these years? No one spoke, heads bowed. Your Majesty, now isn't the time for blame. We found this intelligence in a secret underground chamber. Please take a look. Qiao Xiaobing presented a volume to the Empress with both hands. Ji Luoyao shot him a cold glance, took it, and began to read. Her brow furrowed, and her face grew increasingly grim. While Tao Gongwang and Yin Yao were ruthless, destroying the Imperial Observatory quickly, they weren't professionals. Qiao Xiaobing and his team, on the other hand, had swiftly discovered the observatory's hidden secrets, but this intelligence had nothing to do with Jiang Hao or the human emperor. It was a collection of confidential information about the Great Zhou dynasty. In particular, the detailed records of troop deployments and food supplies in the eastern provinces and major cities were shocking. Why would a mere half-demon collect this information? It couldn't be for himself. If not for himself, then for the forces behind him. A quick glance at the letters exchanged between the director and the demon god empire confirmed her suspicions. More than a dozen letters showed their contact wasn't recent. Seeing the demon god empire's promise to make the half-demon director the national master if they invaded the central plains, Ji Luoyao flew into a new rage. I thought this was the work of a villain, but it looks like this was the act of a true patriot. If it weren't for this hero, I never would have known that such a huge threat was hidden in the court. Ji Luoyao said, her voice tight. This time, she had gained a great deal of information, but it brought her no joy. The Great Zhou was already beset by internal and external problems. If the demon god empire bared its fangs and took advantage of the chaos, it would be a disaster. Even she, with her strong will, felt a surge of anxiety. She cut short her investigation of the massacre, handed the matter over to Qiao Xiaobing and his team, and hurried back to the palace. Once there, she immediately summoned the old minister. Although the old minister was known for his integrity, Ji Luoyao didn't know who else to trust besides this seasoned advisor. When he arrived, Ji Luoyao wasted no time, handing over the intelligence and explaining the situation. Hearing about the demon god empire, the old minister's face turned grave. The Great Zhou's internal unrest, the Eight Kings' rebellion, the Taiping Dao, and even the Jiangnan uprising, were minor issues in the grand scheme of things. With steady leadership, there was still hope of resolving them, but a full-scale invasion by the demon god empire would be a different story. They were a superpower, at least equal to the Great Zhou. Any invasion would be a major undertaking, forcing the Great Zhou to devote all its resources to defense. Therefore, we must resolve the domestic unrest as soon as possible, so we can focus on defending against the demon god empire. Otherwise, the situation could spiral out of control. The old minister said gravely. I want to resolve the unrest, but how? Ji Luoyao asked, her expression strained. The old minister sighed. If there was an easy solution, he wouldn't be here. After hesitating, he said, I know your majesty doesn't like to hear this, but I must say it, only one person can turn the tide. He glanced at the Empress and suggested earnestly, perhaps, your majesty should swallow her pride and apologize to him.